Hey, what's going on? I'm Keith, host of Sports Vibes TV, and today we've got a special edition live stream. As always, I'm joined by our co-host and NBA analyst, Stephen Fox. Foxy, how's everything with you?
All is well. Shout out to you. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the SV Nation. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody's getting ready for a great holiday with their family.
Yep, happy Thanksgiving to you all. We appreciate you guys tuned in. We've got a lot to discuss about our New York Knicks. But before we dive into it, Foxy, I just wanted to get a couple of your thoughts from the previous game.
Obviously I'm glad we won. We came back, after getting beaten at home. So it was good. It was a good win. And I hope we could just build off of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about the win, especially the fact that we actually were able to get some revenge. And we love to see Jalen Brunson go off. And I think in that third quarter, or pretty much the second half, he kind of went into full backpack mode. And it was good to see him figure it out. And RJ, he did have a boatload of turnovers, but at least the shot was starting to fall down. So those are some encouraging signs. So there were some positive takeaways from that game. And hopefully they'll be able to build upon it. And then they would pretty much leave this live stream pointless. But we're going to dive into the candidates that could potentially replace either Tom Thibodeau or Scott Perry in the front office. Now, the New York Knicks have already had a team meeting, and Foxy, you already brought it up this summer. I think even last summer you brought it up, the trajectory of a Tom Thibodeau coaching tenure. And when they have that team meeting, it usually signals the end. So we're just going to look at some potential options to replace those guys if the Knicks do move forward and make a change. You know, you don't want to wait until the move has already happened before you start looking at some of the prospective options. So Foxy will dive into that. But before we do, let's just give a quick shout out to the chat. We've already got 27 in chat. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Keith Turner, thank you for pulling up to the live stream. Brandall, Core Mega, Ace of Spades. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Foxy, anybody in chat you wanted to give a shout out?
The one and the only Mr. Vince. Hope all is well with you and your family. Like you said, the one and only Core Mega, Keith Turner. Really looking forward to chopping it up with you today, folks. As Keith was saying, that everybody's talking about Leon, everybody's talking about Thibs, but we wanted to, we said to ourselves, besides just whining about the Knicks, what are solutions that can make this a better franchise and give us hope for a championship caliber team in the future?
Yep. So, a lot of people come on here, they express their opinions as to what's actually happening on the court and things of that nature, but you really don't hear too much talk about what's going on behind the scenes, whether that be front office or even, head coaching options if there's a change to be made. So we just wanted to present to you guys some options if they do go that route, and this will be up. So if they do decide to make a change, you guys can always revisit the live stream and get a little bit educated on some of the prospective options. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. Boom. So we have it titled How to Fix the New York Knicks. And the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the head coach. So we're going to be looking at Tom Thibodeau. It seems like his seat right now is the hottest in terms of personnel, like front office and, coaching staff. So we're going to look at some people that may replace Thibs if we do go forward and make a switch. But before we do, look at the potential options, we're going to talk about Thibs and his performance so far. If you move on from a guy, typically in that meeting, you kind of discuss their performance, letting them know why they're being let go. And this is the segment where we're going to discuss that. So as you can see, one of the first responsibilities for a head coach is going to be devising innovative offensive and defensive strategies and mid-game adjustments. Now, I gave Tom Thibodeau an F for this. I think time and time again, we've seen that this offense at times lacks innovation, even though with the addition of Jalen Brunson, we're seeing this team play a little bit better offensively. But when you look at it in the whole, there really hasn't been any changes, positive changes, I think, in terms of scheme with Tom Thibodeau at the helm. We still see instances where Julius Randle can be a little bit more ball dominant and a little ISO heavy, and how that can stagnate the offense. And when you look at the hierarchy on the team, really the only person that can kind of snap him out of that, or has the authority to kind of snap him out of that, is going to be the head coach. And we haven't seen Tom Thibodeau do that. So that's going to be one thing that's going to help attribute towards me giving him an F. And also the mid-game adjustments. We saw saw last season. Heading at the start of quarters, the team at times looked a bit discombobulated, and also heading out of halftime, we had very terrible third quarters. So you can see other teams make mid-game adjustments, and this team failed to do so. We also saw that, some of it this season as well. The Hawks game could be one where you point out where you can see that Tom Thibodeau was thoroughly outcoached. So those are some of the reasons why I went with my F. So Foxy, I see you went with an F as well. You want to give a little bit of explanation or reasoning behind that?
I like copying you. You're always getting 100 on the test. So
I wish.
It's like you, me, and the SV Nation have said that, when was the last time, we don't see cutters. We just saw Golden State. We see the player movement, the ball movement. It just seems that if one guy's holding, everybody else is standing around for several seasons now, and it's aggravating. And, like you said, there's such a lack of innovation and all, and then, on both sides, on the defensive side, what we have to wait till last game till they put in Deuce, Grimes, and IQ to finally have some perimeter defense and some speed there. Mid-game adjustments. It's not only bad during the season, but he has a 25 and 36 career playoff record, and it's all attributed and losing 4-1, 4-1. So 2-8 in the last two series, all because of lack of the ability of making mid-game adjustments. And this, if you want to really be serious in this league, you don't know, sometimes they're going to throw several different defenses at you and stuff like that. You have to be on top of your game and be able to do that. And both on offense, whether they go into zones, and then on defense, what do you do? And it just seems that there's been a void in his. He's just so, I don't know if he's regimented in old dog, new tricks or whatever it is. He just doesn't seem to be able to make those changes to bring this team to, let this team be as good as it can.
Yeah, I think if we do bring in a new head coach, we would automatically see, changes instantly to the performance of the team. Not going to say that this team would automatically shoot up the standings or anything like that, but I do think that Tom Thibodeau isn't properly utilizing some of the players out there on the court and kind of building the offense and even the defense to their skill set. Which leads us right to the second responsibility, which is studying the skills and abilities of the players to maximize their performance and expedite their development. So for this one, I'm going to go with an F as well. I think we have seen some improvements from, some of these young guys, but I think we haven't seen enough, especially over the last couple of seasons. I was talking to George, from Into the Knicks First behind the scenes, and I'm like, for a lot of these guys, we've been saying if for the past 2 or 3 years, and we really don't have enough concrete evidence that they're, going to be difference makers in the league. We know they're talented. We know they have the ability to play well and to be impactful in moments. But because of Tom Thibodeau, I think that we start to see a lack of consistency in some of their games. You can look at a guy like Emmanuel Quickley, who's starting to seem like he's figuring it out, but he had a tough start to the season. You look at a guy like Obi, Thibs not necessarily putting him in the best positions to succeed out there on the court. And the front office is going to take some blame on that specific scenario as well, but we'll get to that a little bit later in the live stream. So when you look at some of these guys on the court, some of the younger players and players that we look at as instrumental to the core of this team, I think Tom Thibodeau has not done a great job putting them in the best position for them to showcase their talents out there on the court. So for that, I went with an F. Foxy, I see, you went with the F as well. Do you want to give a little bit more insight into that grade?
Yeah, it's difficult enough for a young man coming from college, the speed of the game, the strength of the game, just the plays of the game. Richard Jefferson said it on a national televised event last year that he's the worst coach for young players. So whether it's IQ coming out, playing him at the point, then playing him at the 2, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. That's overwhelming. RJ, I want you to play the shooting guard. RJ, I want you to play the 3. RJ, I want you to be a top defender. Obi, if you make a mistake, hey, I think Kevin Knox had 17 points yesterday. We saw Andrew Wiggins, find himself once he left Thibs and went to Golden State. That, there's elements of, that a young player can't be afraid if they make a mistake. They have to feel that there's trust that they can play through that mistake if they make it or once. You can't play scared. You have to let it all out, and they seem to play scared. And we've known the favoritism, whether he shows favoritism toward Randall or others. It just doesn't go. But the bottom line is just being able to maximize performance, and sometimes the inconsistency of these players, maybe it's attributed to them just not knowing what the hell the strategy is.
Yeah, it seems like Thibs, for the most part, to the media, he gives a consistent message, but behind the scenes and on the court, it doesn't seem like he follows that. You see some of the older, more veteran players kind of get a longer leash. And some of the vets, they earn a longer leash compared to younger players, but some of it is too much. I think this way we saw Julius Randle react on the court last season, some of the lack of energy this season, I think that is also plays in part to the development of young guys, them being able to see that type of body language out there on the court not being addressed. And when they do something that's out of line, they're the ones that are, being cracked down on. And I think we're starting to see some of that start to play out in the media. We've seen people like Emmanuel Quickley's friend put stuff out there and, start to make some, rumors and circulations and speculation and things like that. Also, we're starting to now hear some rumors about Emmanuel Quickley being included in trades. To me, which is kind of crazy, especially seeing that Emmanuel Quickley is one of our best perimeter defenders. So now we're starting to shop Emmanuel Quickley for draft compensation when this team has already showed, even if we accumulate a boatload of draft capital, they haven't been able to strike a deal to bring in that star player. So now we're going to move on from Emmanuel Quickley potentially and just get draft compensation in return, pretty much just try to reset the money for the most part and try to bring in someone else. I don't think that is the right way to go. And I think if Tom Thibodeau had made things a little bit easier for Emmanuel Quickley during his tenure here with the Knicks, maybe he would have been able to show us a little bit more that could make us more confident in saying Emmanuel Quickley should be someone that we shouldn't be shopping just for some additional draft compensation.
Yeah, I'm so proud of the work that we do together that a couple of months ago, we were talking about, proposed lineups for this year. People like saying, well, you guys crazy? You got Cam in the starting lineup? It's like, yeah, we have Cam in the starting lineup because that's the length, that's the wing that we need. RJ at the 2, put Cam there. It's like, you guys are crazy. Well, when did they take off? When Cam went into the starting lineup. And other things that we saw that we said, hey, it makes all the sense in the world. Hey, Grimes, a lot of the young kids did not get any burn until there was an injury. Thibs didn't take a step back and said, maybe I need to put somebody with, put somebody in there with a different energy, more of a dog mentality that'll, plays every possession like it's the last possession in a game. No, he had to wait till injuries happen. And we were saying, no, do this. And like we said, whether Steve Kerr and others, we were saying another thing we were proud of is like, what? Most likely there's going to be a 3-man rotation at the 5. Like, what do you mean not in Thibs rotation? No, we're definitely telling you that Sims is going to get some playing time. And people are like saying, are you serious? Look what's happening. So, I wish, and that's just for us looking at the best teams in the league, what the coaches do. And then looking at our coach, like, why aren't you doing what Memphis does? Why aren't you doing what Golden State does? Why aren't you doing those things? A bit different rotation. And also, like we said, sometimes we're not telling you to play the kids 20 minutes, but definitely give them 5 minutes. If they have significant 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, they understand the speed of the game, all of those elements, they're able to be different, not have to wait until, oh, God, I hope somebody pulls an hamstring so I can get some playing time.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Foxy. And also, since we're talking about Thibs, and, the development of these young guys, someone actually put a pretty interesting player in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. Pudge Nice talked about Rokas. One of the reasons Rokas isn't with the Knicks at the moment, I think, is because Tom Thibodeau. I think it was last year he mentioned that he wasn't going to come over sees come over to the U.S. unless he was able to get some sort of guarantees that he was actually going to get some legitimate play time. And that's why he's staying over in Barcelona and continuing to play under Jasikevicius, because Jasikevicius has already told him he's invested in making him the best player that he could be. So if Tom Thibodeau was one of those guys, one of those developmental coaches, we could potentially have a guy like Rokas, who's been playing well over in Europe, on this team and helping to contribute to us playing some winning basketball. But unfortunately, Thibs doesn't really have that type of view around the league, that he's someone that's going to look at young players and try to get the most out of them over, maybe some aging vets who only have a year or two left in the league. So what I'm also going to do now, I'm going to put a poll in the chat. I want to know what you guys grade Thibs for his tenure here with the Knicks. The selections are going to be B, C, D, and F, and I assumed A would probably be the least likely to be chosen. So if you think it's an A, you can just drop that in the chat, and that'll be us used as your pick. So I'm going to put the poll in the chat. Let us know what you guys think about Tom tenure here with the Knicks.
Yeah, Rokas just took a step back and just saw how Miles was being treated, and like he'll treat me. And you know what? I've been to, my second favorite city in the world, folks, is Barcelona. It's a magnificent city, great architecture, great culture, great people, great food, great wine, great women. Just everything about it's a great city. So I'd rather hang out in Barcelona than Bridgeport. I don't need anything. So I don't blame Rokas. He's smart, but gosh, he's sending signals where people are like saying, "Oh God, I don't want to go to New York. I don't want to go to New York. I don't want to go to New York, man." And that's not what we want. We want this to be a franchise where people are like, "I'd love to play for that coach. I'd love to play with those players."
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Thibs really garners that type of response around the league. But hopefully, we'll be able to bring in someone who does. So that's what we'll be doing today. We'll be looking at some options. Now, the first option.
One thing, though.
Go ahead.
He said that Quickley on the thing that he was one of our best defenders.
Mm-hmm.
He's not one of our best defenders. He's one of the best defenders in the league. And the stats came on Rapture. So he's a fantastic, you, me, and George, we just recently said that, folks, this, our eyes are saying, and this was before stuff just came out on reports yesterday, that our eyes are saying this guy is already like third team All NBA. His defense is that good. And sure enough, it validated what you, George, and I, and JD have been saying, that he's playing world-class defense, not just a good defense for this team. That's why the people are making calls like, you know what? His foul shooting is fantastic. His defense is fantastic. His motor is fantastic. The shooting will come around. But you know what? If you have those other elements, and he's a fantastic rebounder at his size, that, we'll be patient with him. He's a young guy and stuff like that. So having his name I have no problem trading Quickley. But it would have to be, in my head, if I was going to trade Quickley, it would be like, yeah, I'll trade Quickley for somebody like a Trey Murphy III. So that's the wing of our dreams, So yeah, I put together a first round pick and maybe Quickley and try to get the 6'8", guy of our dreams that can shoot threes magnificently and stuff like that. So, so everyone is tradable, but it has to be not given away. Getting a draft choice for Quickley is front office malpractice.
Just trying to reset the money. That's all that would really be if they were to go ahead and do something like that.
Yeah.
Really wouldn't make much sense. But we have a super chat. Thank you for supporting the live stream from Marshmallow. He says, "Afternoon, fellas. IQ, Grimes, Cam, Obi, and Sims would be fun to watch defensively. They are quick like cats." Yeah, that would definitely be, I think, one of our better defensive lineups. You look at Cam, Grimes, IQ. I think arguably those are I don't even think arguably, those are our three best perimeter defenders. Now you can go back and forth as to how they fall 1, 2, and 3, but those are definitely our three best perimeter defenders. So them out there with a guy like Jericho Sims, who although he may be somewhat undersized at the center position, he kind of makes that up for what he can do out there on the perimeter, trying to stay in front of some quicker players. So I think, you look at those five guys out there on the court, they would definitely make up a pretty fun team defensively and also offensively with the way they can kind of push the ball up the court. So Marshmallow, that's definitely a dope lineup you sent us.
Absolutely. Thanks again for your generosity. We greatly appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for that. So now we bash Thibs for a little bit. Now let's actually get into the solution portion of the live stream. Now, if the Knicks do move on from Tom Thibodeau in season, the most likely candidate is going to be Johnny Bryant, who I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with. He's been the associate head coach for the New York Knicks from 2020 to present. Before that, he was the assistant coach for the Utah Jazz under Quinn Snyder for 2014 to 2020. He was also a development assistant before that from 2012 to 2014. Now, Johnny Bryant is a name that has some pretty nice cachet around the league. I think a lot of front offices view him as someone who will be a future head coach. He does have co-signs from guys like Donovan Mitchell, which is one of the reasons I think we were so linked to Donovan Mitchell, seeing that they have such a good relationship. And he's been known as a guy that can get through to young guys and help them as they try to find themselves in the league. So, Foxy, how would you feel if Johnny Bryant was the one that was to be elevated to the head coach position after we, not even after we move on from Thibs, but if he was to get the job, they removed the interim tag. How would you feel if Johnny Bryant was the long-term option at head coach for this New York Knicks franchise?
I'd rather go Johnny Bryant if it was an in-season change and let Johnny take it from there. If it was after the season, then I'd probably want to take a step back and maybe get somebody that has head coaching capabilities. So, like you said, he started, the Bryant Sports Academy, and his claim to fame was Dame Lillard and Paul Millsap. They both came out of his development program there. So, and, the point guard whisperer, like you said, with Donovan, he's very, very good like that. He's young and stuff like that. But so I have no problem if we go through a bad stretch and they decide to make a change, bring on Johnny in season. Let's see how the team responds to him.
Yeah, he's somebody that's already in the locker room. I think a lot of the players are fans of what he's able to do and help them with their game. So if he were to be the option at head coach in the interim, I'd be open with it because, of course, it'll be unlikely for us to go out there and bring someone in mid-season, especially with the team. I would assume reeling if we're moving on from Tom Thibodeau. You can't expect them to move from Tom Thibodeau if the team is actually figuring it out and playing well. So with the team not playing well and moving off of Tom Thibodeau, Johnny Bryant could be an in-house option where the front office can say, all right, we already know what you can do. You already have inside knowledge of what these players need to do in order to change their game to be more effective and more consistent out there on the court. So the fact that he already has all that knowledge and he's already in-house and it wouldn't be a seamless transition would be why I would be open for him being the interim head coach. But now moving past that, I'm not 100% sold on Johnny Bryant. I know he's been a solid developmental coach, but I'm not too sure. I'm not too educated on actually the X's and O's and what type of offense he'll be running, what type of defense he'll be running, because he's never really been the guy, I think, calling the shots for the most part. So for me, I'm a little bit hesitant to say, okay, let's move forward with him as the head coach past that. But if the team plays well, responds well to Johnny Bryant while he has that interim tag, then I'd be much more open to us continuing to have him as the head coach, because then you would have some film and to see what type of concepts he's running, what he has our guys doing out there on the court, and how it differs from what they were doing under Tom Thibodeau. So in that situation, then I'd be a little bit more open to Johnny Bryant being the solution long term. But outside of interim, I'd be a little bit hesitant in signing off on Johnny Bryant being the option for us long term.
It'd be similar to Miller a few years ago with Fizdale. We came in, we saw some good things, and obviously not enough good things for him to get the gig, but there'd be enough of a stretch where you can see how, that, like you said, the players respond to him, and if he's bringing in what we were just talking about, some innovative things on both offense and defense. See if the players are communicating and seeing what the energy is with him as coach. I definitely know he won't be screaming every 2 seconds like Thibs.
All right, barking at everybody. Anthony R says the Knicks need a proven hand to start from scratch, fresh start. Pudge Knight says Johnny and Udoka next year. So what I guess they want Johnny to be Udoka's associate head coach, so he'll be in the same title. O-Dog says, I wouldn't mind keeping Johnny, but we would have to get rid of guys like Randall to keep him from falling into the same mentality as Thibodeau. And that's a real important topic. I appreciate you bringing that up, O-Dog, because if we do move on from Thibs, there's still going to be a giant elephant in the room, and that'll be Julius Randle and how he could possibly respond to a move, taking away Thibs and having Johnny Bryant be the one running the show. Because I would assume Johnny Bryant would look to try and continue to focus or run the offense through a guy like Jalen Brunson. And, we've seen how Julius Randle responded to the win the other day. And, he didn't really look too thrilled that he wasn't the guy that really carried this team to a victory. And, I thought he would be a little bit more hyped because he was hyped when we, were able to come back and beat, the Nuggets. He was hyped when we won that game, and he was the one that kind of willed us to that victory. But it seems like he wasn't too thrilled about our last win. So that will be an elephant in the room if we do move on from Tom Thibodeau. That's something that still has to be addressed by the next head coach.
Yeah, and whomever it is, if Randall's still here, all I think the fans are looking for, if that coach is able to bring out, and we've talked about it. Randall has elite skills. You don't make second team All NBA not being being very, very talented. It's the other elements that we've talked about, and that all we ask is try to make them the best they can. But if bad behavior is shown, you got to get the hook. Show everybody, and then it shows all the young, it shows everybody on the team. I'm only asking energy. You show some bad energy, you're off the court in a second. You don't take somebody off like that, then it's a cancer that breeds. And, so that's why a lot of people are upset that obviously we all want the good of Randall, but his style of play, like we've talked about, he has great stats, impressive stats, but going ISO is not good for the rest of the team. So he has good stats, but it throws off, he's a rhythm vampire. He throws off the rhythm of the other players.
He's all types of things. He's a rhythm vampire. He's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
That's my favorite because you just don't know game in. And watching the game, especially, my heart goes out to him because he looks like he's going through a roller coaster of emotions. In the second quarter, he's smiling. In the fourth quarter, he looks like he's about to cry. He looks like he's like ripping himself on the inside. So I don't want anything bad for the guy, but I think he has some issues, and I'm serious. I really think he has some issues that, like you said, I've seen us win and he looks sad, and it's like, you should be joyous. What are you sad about, man?
Well, there is a lot of pressure playing in a city like New York, and that's why you say you got to be built for this. So, hopefully he can turn around, rebound, show he's actually built for this, so that way we can get some decent value for him in a trade. Let's see what we got going on. I closed the poll. Appreciate you guys participating. So it looks like the winner is C. 45% vote that Thibs is getting a C for his tenure here with the Knicks so far. Then following up after that is going to be D, which got 28% of the vote. 16% said he got an F for his tenure, and then we have 9% going with B. I also saw George drop his vote in the chat, but I won't say it aloud because that might not be, that might have been a joke, but we'll move forward. All right, so the next option, the next potential option for head coach to replace Thibs would be Adrian Griffin. So you can see Adrian Griffin, he's the current associate head coach for the Toronto Raptors. Resume breaks down as this, like this. He's still the assistant coach of the Toronto Raptors from 18 to present. He was also at Oklahoma City before that, from 2016 to 2018. He had another stop before that with the Magic from 15 to 16. He was with the Bulls before that from 2010 to 2015. And he's also been on the staff of the Milwaukee Bucks from 2008 to 2010. And you can see he was also a former NBA player, played for teams like the Celtics, Mavs, Rockets, and the Bulls. And also he's been on other teams' radars. He's been requested, the Lakers have requested permission to interview him. He's also been linked to the Utah Jazz after they moved off from Quinn Snyder. So it's very likely that Adrian Griffin could be a head coach within the next couple of years. So we just added him just to showcase some external options for the New York Knicks if they decide to go that route. And he's also been part of NBA's championship winning team. So he has that championship pedigree, being from that Toronto Raptors tree. So Foxy, how do you feel about Adrian Griffin if he were to be the next Knicks head coach if we move on from Thibs?
I think he's very talented. He has great experience, like you said. Hired by Scott Skiles, spent 5 years with Thibodeau when in Chicago. So we said some stuff about Thibodeau, but we're not. We also understand from a defensive. Thibs is a good coach. He knows his stuff, but and a lot of coaches, love him to learn from him. So, but also he was part of the USA team. That won the 2014 World Cup. So that was with Steph Curry, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. So he's, worked with those guys. He worked with Billy Donovan at OKC, and then, like you said, with Nick Nurse, he was instrumental in them winning the championship. So he has a really, really good pedigree of working with all different types of coaches, all different types of teams. And he was also an NBA player, as you see, for the Celtics, Mavs, Rockets, Bulls. So, and his son, who was balling out for the Atlanta Hawks, folks, that's just breaking our heart. He was picked, 16th. He's balling out, but we said, you, me, and George, that he probably had the best fundamentals, and he learned that from his dad. The best shooting fundamentals of anyone last year in the draft. So he's a really fine coach, and I think he's going to make a great head coach someday.
Yeah, I think definitely he'll be a good option if the Knicks do decide to make a move. Also, he's been instrumental, I think, in he's been given a lot of credit for a lot of the development of those young guys over in Toronto. You look at guys like OG, look at guys like Siakam, Fred VanVleet. They just brought in, Scotty Barnes. He's working with him over there. So I think you look at this team, we have a young squad. We do have players that I think he could work with and help them be better out there on the court. So Adrian Griffin is an option. I'm not sure if he'd necessarily be the guy I would go for. You already know who I'm targeting. But I definitely do think if the Knicks go that route, that would be a solid option.
I'm an old guy, so I want some youth. I want a young, thinking out of the box coach, who's paid his dues. But it's time for, we saw it in Boston last year. It's time for a nice young coach to come on.
Yep, I hear you with that one. One thing I do like about Adrian Griffin is he's been around the league, so he's gotten to see how a lot of teams, run their operation. He's gotten to see what works, what doesn't work, and things like that. So that's definitely something I would give him. Definitely be a plus in my eyes. The fact that he's been around the league and he's pretty experienced, I would say. All right, let's see what we got going on in chat. So still Knicks fans, salute. Thank you for tuning in. He says, what's good, Knicks family? Salute to the chat. Salute to Keith and Foxy. Appreciate you tuning in. Building Block says Adrian Griffin is too close to Leon Rose and Thibs. Some more connections. Let's see what's going on. Splash and says some of these people won't be able to handle New York City. Get Atkinson in here. Ding, ding, ding. It's definitely my guy. Dom P914 says, what's good? Still Knicks fans. Oh, so salute to still Knicks fans. Manny says, what about Quinn Snyder? We've got some other options we'll be able to discuss. All right, so number 3.
Yeah, just real quick, shout out Ron Cleveland. Hi. Hope
hey, Ron's in chat. Ron. Salute.
Yeah, shout out to Ron. The originator of front office malpractice. So wanted to give him a shout out. The Smoking Nick, like you said, my friend Anthony Arm. Please say hi to Danette. You just mentioned Ron from Still Knicks fans. Him, Jose, and John, and everyone. So Building Blocks. So and I see May 4th. So everyone, just shout out.
Yep. Lex the Destroyer says practice does not equate to in-game experience. Yeah, there's some practice killers who don't necessarily translate that to the court. All right, so we got another option, Jaron Collins, assistant coach for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's been there from 2021 to present, so from last year to this year. Previously, he was with the Golden State Warriors from 2014 to 2021, and he was in charge, I believe, of running their defense. Now, I think initially in his first season, they weren't great. I think they were 15-50. But after that, I think they definitely stepped up their game defensively, and you saw the Warriors end that season. They were 5th in the league in defensive rating. So that's something that Jaron Collins would be able to bring over to this team. The fact that he's shown that he can be a guy that can coach up teams defensively. He's also been a scout for the Clippers from 2013 to 2014. And he's also a former player, played for the Jazz, Trailblazers, Suns, and Clippers. Now, Foxy, how would you feel if Jaron Collins was to be the one that we ended up bringing in if we do move on?
Another one of the young studs, man. Another ex-player, Stanford University. So he's wicked smart. Him and his brother, if you remember him and his brother coming out of Stanford. But like you said, he won 3 world championships as a coach. First as a player development coach in 2014 under Steve Kerr, and then he was promoted to assistant coach and won 3 championships. And then he was hired away for the Pelicans to work as the number 1 guy, right hand for Willie Green. So like you said, defensive mind, real great in development. Another guy that understands the game, class act. Another one that'll probably be a head coach in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Jaron Collins, definitely think he'd be a solid option. Let me see. Somebody called him Sam Castle. Oh, no, maybe somebody else mentioned Sam Castle.
Oh. I was going to say, well,
he's I call him Castle. Sam Cassell.
He's a 6'10" Sam Castle then.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got going on. Miguel P says the problem with Thibs has always been the same. He follows his own script. He manipulates the rotation to force Leon Rose's hand, and that has already cost us dearly. Diamond Jim says, hand the keys and a $5,000 suit to Rick Brunson and watch history. That would be a hell of a twist if they do decide to move on from Thibs at some point this season. And they end up giving Rick Brunson the interim title. Yeah, that'd be nuts. Especially seeing that Johnny Bryant's the one that's the associate head coach.
Yeah, I don't know what that would do. But Brunson has fire. There's fire in him, so I like that.
He got into it with Obi.
Yeah, but over about doing what you're supposed to do on the court. So what we were just saying, we want a guy who's going to hold players accountable, and you see how well-grounded his son is, and he holds his son accountable, so he treats everybody the same. So I don't know if he's first in line, but if he was, the sleeper that came out of it in an interim basis, we just have to say no different than we said about Miller. All right, let's just take a step back and see what he does with this team.
Yeah, facts. All right, so let's go to the next coach on the list, and this would be my guy. Kenny Atkinson, currently the assistant coach for the Golden State Warriors. He's been there since 2021. Before that, he was with the Clippers from 2020 to 2021. And his last head coaching opportunity was with the Brooklyn Nets from 2016 to 2020. And you saw a lot of positive development from a lot of their young guys over there, whether it be, Jared Allen, D'Angelo Russell, and, players like that. I'm thrilled. I was happy with what he was, not happy, but I was happy that he wasn't going over to Charlotte, because then I would have taken him off the market. Fortunately, he's still with the Golden State Warriors. So this upcoming offseason, if things don't work out, he's definitely a guy we could go and target to bring in here. You see, he's also had stops with the Atlanta Hawks. He was with us from 08 to 2012. And he was coaching over in Parrot basketball racing before that. So, Foxy, how would you feel about Kenny Atkinson potentially being the head coach for the New York Knicks?
When did your pick? I thought it used to be our selection. No, it's yours.
You said you wanted to go youth.
Well, Kenny's young.
Compared to some of the other guys.
Yeah, well, I know, but I didn't think Kenny was going for his Medicare card like with Thibs is this year. So I consider him still young, but he's a pit bull. He played in Europe as a player, and guys, I think Wally mentioned him a few weeks ago that he was a tough guy to go against, a really hard-nosed guy, but no different than we were saying about some of the guys. He learned offense under D'Antoni as an assistant for the Knicks. Then he was with Mike Budenholzer, who's now the champion, or 2 years ago for Bucks. What he did as development coach for Brooklyn Nets. So, and now what we said is PhD with Golden State, watching how they do things. So, was a head coach, knows how to develop players, been around the league, has worked with a lot of different coaches. I like Kenny Atkinson a whole lot.
And I'm a fan of what he was able to do over there in Brooklyn, and they never should have moved off of him. Look how it's become a clown show over there since he left. You know, he was, I think, someone that held those guys accountable, and maybe that might be one of the reasons they ran him out of town. The fact that he was actually coaching them up. But to me, it sounds crazy when you hear KD get interviewed and he's saying he wants a coach that's going to coach him up. That's not going to be, you know, easy on them and allow them to do whatever they want to do out there on the court just because they're stars. And I think Kenny Atkinson was that guy for them that would have done all those things. So the fact that they came in there and kind of got him up out of there and decided to put in someone like Steve Nash, who, if the players are the ones that hired you, it's kind of hard for him to then turn around and hold them accountable. Because if your guys are the ones that put the word in to bring him in here, then you guys can very easily be the ones to put the word in to get him up out of here. And we saw that this season. He was there for a few games and then boom, he was sent out on his way. So Kenny Atkinson, him being available, I think if he were to be brought on next season, he's definitely someone that would help this team tremendously. And I think you see a lot of these young players make some tremendous gains.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan, always has been a big fan of him. I wanted him to be hired in front of Thibs, in fact, a number of years ago, but you know, he's not standing still. He's learning, and somebody's going to, you know, and I respect him too. He turned down Charlotte. You know, he's, you know, part of being gaining wisdom as you get older is becoming more selective, folks. So he looked at Charlotte, looked at the ownership there, and looked at some of the players on that roster and was like, nah, doesn't feel right. Thank you, but I'll stay at Golden State, win another championship as an assistant, then go over there and have a nightmare run.
Yeah, he really didn't get too in depth into why he didn't want to go. I think he didn't want to mess up his chances for an opportunity elsewhere. So I would like to have a sit down with him and find out why he didn't go to Charlotte. Was it because it was working for, you know, Jordan? Did he not like some of the guys in the lock? Because he accepted initially, and he definitely dodged a bullet because that offseason everything went to hell. You know, Miles Bridges, he had his, you know, whatever he got caught up in. He had his legal charge. You look at LaMelo, he's played only a game or two since he's come back from that ankle and then re-injured it.
And the stuff is that LaMelo's a nightmare off the court. And for him to be the face of the franchise, his style of play, he's the type of guy that, you know, his style of play, like, ooh, look at that pass and stuff. But he's also the type of guy that the game's on the line, guys all open under the basket. It's like, just throw him the pass, but he has to throw it that way. And it's like, oh, you had to make a fancy pass instead of doing the right thing. So he's a nightmare ball for any coach. And I think he was smart. If that's going to be the franchise, then I ain't going to be part of your franchise.
Skip town because of that. All right, I hear you on that one. Let's see what's going on. Unc says his first option would be Mark Jackson. Close number 2 would then be Kenny Atkinson. Keith Turner says Mark Jackson likes what he does right now. I don't think he even wants to coach. Well, he interviewed for the Knicks job, but then again, that was about 2.5 years ago at this point. So maybe he has changed.
Yeah, I love Mark Jackson, but we're in this woke culture. I'm old, so I'm not woke like what the hell's happening in our society. So, you know, he expressed some feelings about, you know, his religious beliefs and everything, and they came down hard on him. So thank God that's a few years ago, but I don't think some franchises or some media outlets will ever let Mark you know, get away. You know, they'll always remind them of what he said and things like that. So I love Mark Jackson. I loved him since St. John's. I loved him since high school here in the city. So I've always been a fan of him. And a lot of people, he does get a lot of credit in Golden State, man. He did a lot of things that other people got credit for, but it was really Mark Jackson that laid the foundation development-wise out there. And then a couple of years later, everyone's like, wow, Steve Kerr, all these people are great. Yeah, you're great. And I have great respect for you. But Mark Jackson did a lot of that heavy lifting, man.
Yep. And I see a few people are making suggestions. I see Chris Mullen. You guys have mentioned Mark Jackson. Did somebody suggest Rasheed Wallace? Or was they just talking about Rasheed? But you know, the people that we don't discuss, we'll put together some more live streams. And the next time it seems like there may be an imminent change. we'll discuss them and we'll put them on the slides, and then we'll just refresh and talk about some of the guys we've spoken about earlier in the live stream.
I see Dwayne Dennis is saying Juwan Howard. I don't know about Juwan Howard as a coach, but I'll take Jet Howard, his son, as a wing for the Knicks in the future. He's looking good at Michigan, a 6'7" wing. His son, Jet Howard.
All right, now this next person that we're going to discuss is someone that's been mentioned a few times already in chat, and that will be Quinn Snyder. So now he's the former head coach of the Utah Jazz. He coached them from 2014 to 2022. He was the assistant coach over in Atlanta for 2013 and 2014. Before that, he coached CSKA Moscow in 2012 and 2013, and he also had stops with the Lakers and Philadelphia 76ers. Now, Quinn Snyder is an interesting option. I think it would have been even, I don't know. Yeah, but I think it would have been even more interesting if we decided to have made the trade for Donovan Mitchell, and maybe Quinn could have come over and been head coach. But I don't know if Quinn would be someone that the Knicks would look for, but he did do a solid job during his tenure with the Utah Jazz. He was able to get some solid development out of Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. I think when Rudy Gobert came into it, nobody really thought he was going to be the type of center that he ended up becoming. So you do see a lot of positives coming out of Quinn Snyder's tenure with the Utah Jazz. So Foxy, if Quinn ended up being the head coach of the New York Knicks next season, how would you feel about that?
I would have no problem with it. I love smart players. I love smart coaches, and because of space constraints, we were just showing his major, but from 93 to 99, he served as, from 93 to 95, he served as administrative assistant to Coach K at Duke, while he was completing not only his MBA, but he got his law degree. So this is, so he got his law degree. And so after getting both those degrees, he became the full-time assistant coach to Coach K. So he's then went on to Missouri as a head coach, and then all the other things. So, went to Europe. He understands the different players, and I really love that about him, that he's been around, worked with a lot of different teams, a lot of different head coaches. So, he took over for Norm Stewart and stuff like that. He worked for Mike Brown. We talk about, so he's well experienced, great, under in college ball up to the pros, knows how to work with kids because of all those years at Duke and at Missouri. So he has an extensive resume, and like I said, he's wicked smart. So I love wicked smart. A lot of times means innovation and things that'll make a team better.
Building Block says, I don't see Leon Rose hiring anyone he doesn't rub shoulders with. I don't know if Leon Rose gets the ability to hire a second coach. We move on from Tom Thibodeau. That might be another ominous sign for Leon Rose and some other people in the front office, because if it doesn't work out with their first selection, I don't think Leon Rose really has that resume of being a guy that can mess up on his first head coach selection and then get the opportunity to choose another one. It's not like he was in previous places in the NBA showing that he could be successful at his position, and now he's here and made one mistake at head coach and is given a new opportunity. As a first-time president of basketball operations, first time being in a front office period, there's a very small margin of error, even though it's a completely new position, because the amount of power, the amount of authority you wield for an NBA franchise is not something you can hold lightly. So for him to make an error in Tom Thibodeau, if they do move off of him, I don't know if he's going to be given the opportunity to pick a new one.
Yeah, I still don't know, because of how cryptic the front office is. Is Rosas a consultant to Dolan or a consultant to Rose?
I think Rose, I believe.
Yeah, so like you were saying, I don't know, because it was like saying, if another head coach, is Rosas going to be telling Dolan who he should hire, or is he going to, how's that decision going to be rendered? But if you let Leon do it again, then we don't know that rubbing shoulders thing may be true.
Yeah, the coolest 718 says Dice will probably be the head coach if Thibs gets fired. I don't know. Dice is Thibs' guy, no? So I don't know if Thibs gets let go. I'm not sure if Dice would be the one that they hand the reins to. When we originally brought in Johnny Bryant, he was supposed to be the one now supposed to take the torch from Tom Thibodeau at some point. So I think if we move off of Tom Thibodeau prematurely before his contract runs out, I still think Johnny Bryant would be the most likely to get that interim. Even though we have seen Dice, do a good job coaching up the summer league team. I think it's a big step up going from summer league, coaching the summer league team to coaching the an NBA team. And I think Johnny Bryant, being the associate head coach, might be a little bit more prepared to take on that responsibility.
Yeah, shout out to the coolest, man. Day one guy. I hope all is well with you and your family. That's a really crazy thing because I've heard stuff in the background that the Knicks front office, a lot of people love Dice. He is one of their analytics guys, so he's always providing the analytics to the coaches and stuff. The players like him from a player development standpoint. You saw him at the summer league. He's a real sleeper. So everybody's saying Johnny, but if Dice got it, the coolest is going to get, we have to give the coolest something. He's really thought of in a very favorable way by the front office. Not just as Thibs guy, but the new age of coaches that use analytics as a key tool for them knowing what what are the trends and what do we do both on offense and defense. They're data-driven coaches.
Yeah, also give a shout out to Lex the Destroyer. He had mentioned Dice as well in chat.
Yeah, and also shout out to Lex for getting a troll for us.
He got someone? Oh, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Even got by me. Thank you, Lex, for being one of the last lines of defense.
He's legendary, man. He's the best rim protector in the podcasting game.
Facts. All right, so now we've talked about Thibs enough. Now let's talk about something that someone that we really don't hear too much about, and we'll just talk about him just for a little bit. And that's going to be the general manager portion of this live stream, talking about the one and the only Scott Perry. So here we have a tweet from Tommy Bear. It says New York had more cap space than any team in 2021. Leon Rose spent $200 million on Evan Fournier, Derrick Rose, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kimba, and Taj Gibson. 11 months later, New York had to attach draft picks to dump Burks, Noel, and Kimba, and will likely do the same with Fournier. So Scott Perry, here we have our grades. You look at the responsibilities for a GM. The first one we're going to be talking about is tasked with making decisions that ensure the team's long-term success. So for this one, I went with a D. I would say I went with a D because you can see in free agency there have been a lot of swings and misses for this front office. And I wouldn't go strictly with an F because I would assume Scott Perry has some part in the draft process. And we've done a solid job, I believe, bringing in some young players to help add to this core of the team. But if you look at what this team is looking at in terms of long-term success, I'm not sure we're in the best position. And, the reason I probably would have gone with Foxy and gave him an F, but I'm not 100% sure Scott Perry's the one making a lot of these deals or decisions when it comes to roster construction because there's so many cooks in the kitchen. Is Scott Perry the one that was really the driving force behind bringing in Evan Fournier, bringing in Kemba Walker, making those deals, or is it someone else in the front office who made those suggestions and it's just Scott Perry being the GM who we kind of look at and kind of make a scapegoat because that's typically the role of the GM, building the roster and things like that. So because I'm not 100% sure who's the one really calling the shots outside of Leon Rose, I went with a D. So Foxy, you want to explain your grade for Scott Perry?
Yeah, it's really bothered me that we've only saw basically Thibs getting, people saying this about Thibs or saying this about Leon Rose. But folks, if you do a Google on what are the responsibilities of an NBA general manager, they're responsible for the roster. They're responsible for the cap. They're responsible for basically so much of the basketball operations that we're not hearing his name with whether Donovan Mitchell. That's a GM role. We heard Rosas and all these other things, but we didn't hear Perry's name. So when Tommy Beer said Leon Rose spent 200 million on Evan Fournier, Rose, Burks, Millen, Kevin, no, classically that is the GM. So it was really Scott Perry spent 200 plus million on those players,
and Rose signed off on it.
Exactly, Rose is an agent, so that's supposed to be your basketball guy. And so for those things of him doing, making long-term success. So if we had to dump things, getting players. You're looking, everything is a chess piece about putting players together that'll become a championship team. And he brought on players that you're like saying, that's, from Elford from day one, Bullock, all these different guys, like you're like, that's a temporary guy. That's not somebody that I look as a key piece in a championship team. And so I've been really, really upset that he's gotten away with this. And also, if he's a real basketball guy, Scott Perry, then he would have said, this is bullshit. I'm a real GM. I'm a real basketball guy. If this guy, meaning Rose and all this other stuff, I'm getting out of here, man. I can't, I'm not going to be left like this. This is crazy. I can't do what I need to do. But also things like Elfrid Payton, Mario Hezonja, who else did he bring? Oh, Evan Fournier. So all the guys that, from a nepotism standpoint in his past, Scott Perry that he had at Orlando, he brought over here. So one thing is nepotism, but only if they're part of somebody that you can say, yeah, I could really see them as part of a championship team going forward. And could you say that about any of those three guys? And then the draft decisions. The draft is probably one of the most important things that a GM does. And so trading down, us amassing protected draft picks is not, that's not doing anything for the long-term success, because 15, 17, 19, you're going to get a role player. Yeah, every once in a while a great player or a good player comes out of that, but 90%, statistically, over 90%, you're going to get somebody who's never going to make an all-star team, ever. They're going to be, hopefully they'll be good. But so I think a lot of the moves that Perry has made has been detrimental to this franchise.
I hear you on that one, Foxy. Just to speak a little bit more on my grade, the D, I'm also going to give them a D, because I know you say we got a lot of draft capital, even though it's not necessarily the cream of the crop. But we do have that draft capital in reserve in order to make a move. And there were teams that were willing to trade for it. You look at the Donovan Mitchell deal that fell through. The Jazz were willing to accept some first round picks from us. And even if we didn't include the ones that we necessarily traded for, even if we included our own to make the deal go through, we would still have some first round picks to fall back on and add to this roster. So for me, that's why I didn't go complete F with Scott Perry. And it was a little bit nice, and I gave him a D. So now the next responsibility for the GM that we're going to discuss is managing the team's roster, create a championship caliber team by assembling a group of talented players with complementary skill sets. So for this one, I went with an F. I don't really know if I don't really think Perry has done a great job adding, guys that have complementary skill sets for the most part. We're starting to do a little bit better this offseason with the addition of Jalen Brunson. I do have to mention that and give some credit there. And that's probably why I went with the D as well, for the long-term success. But when you look at the majority of this roster, we went and brought in a guy like Obi, even though he was behind Julius Randle. We went and extended Julius Randle, even though we have a guy like Obi Toppin. And if you look at this roster from top to bottom, I think we're still about 3 or 4 moves, major moves, before we're a legitimate, championship caliber or championship contending team. And you look at year 3, I would think that a team would be much further along in their development towards being championship contending than I would think this team is right now, especially if we're going we haven't done a full-blown rebuild. We're trying to retool on the fly. And in that case, we should be much further along, since we didn't do a wide-scale rebuild from the ground up. So the fact that we're still, a middling team, middle of the road, and there's nothing that you can point to and say, all right, we're close to championship contention, so at least we're making some gains. Or no, we're a team that's rebuilding, so at least we have our young guys out there getting better, and we may get a high draft pick, but at least that's a more elite talent we could add to this roster. We're in neither one of those situations right now. We're just in the middle. We're in limbo. We're in the gray. So I think as a GM, that's not a great position for your team to be in. So for that one, I gave him, and for that reason, I gave an F. Foxy, you want to elaborate a little bit more on your grade?
Yeah, it's just visually what we see on this team that, whether it was a couple of years ago that you say, hey, Randall had this second team All NBA season. But if we take a step back, let's look at the 5 years prior to that. Is this an outlier? You know what? Probably the most prudent move for us to do is let him play out the next season. And let's see if he can get, play at the same level as that second team All NBA. But if he goes back to the previous seasons, let's not use the money. Let him earn that contract. But we awarded him that contract, and we saw what happened last year. And then he turns around and does the same thing with RJ Barrett. Instead of saying, you know what, but if RJ Barrett had a great year this year, you know how much the contract would be? Good. That's a good problem. That he played out to such a level that, yeah, you know what? But now we're like saying, a lot of us, hey, is RJ going to have a good season? Absolutely. He'll come back. It's just the lack of consistency, the lack of efficiency in his fourth season. When we watch on defense, we're saying about a complimentary, we're saying, Randall's a heavy-legged player. RJ is, this is a wing league. It's about perimeter. It's about, defense, about being athletic and stuff. You're putting together a foundation of a Brunson, RJ, and Randall. That's not what a lot of the elite coaches and front offices would look and say, no, the NBA's changing, man. We need different type of players. So he's awarding contracts that's strangling us. So now he has JB, Brunson under contract, which is a great contract. I love Brunson. I equate Brunson to a Kyle Lowry. I think as Kyle Lowry was part of a championship team with Toronto, I think Jalen Brunson could be part of a championship team for New York if we have the other guys around him. But it doesn't seem like they're making master strokes, or, in business we used to call it SLURP, strategic long-range planning, where you're looking out 3, 5, 7, 10 years. What are the players? What are the type of players? What's the type of players we want to draft? What are we doing in our G League team, our Oregon? That's really important. We mentioned in the last stream, you see other organizations like Toronto and San Antonio and others that have players like, where did they come from? Oh, that guy was in their G League for a year or so. When was the last time we had somebody like that? We grew up with the Masons and the Starks that came from D League, I think it was called at that time, yep. Not G League in the old days, and that that came up. So I don't see him nurturing that type of thing of having players that are going to be that are athletic and will be dynamite on defense. They're going to be great cutters or great shooters. So what's Thibs saying? I got to start Fournier. Why? Because I don't have any other shooters on the team. So I'm going to have to sacrifice defense, and that came out back to bite him. But I feel badly for Thibs, like his hands tied. All right, they traded Alec Burks. Rose is coming back from an injury. We don't think because of Brunson he's going to get that much burn, but who's going to be the shooter? They're going to just pull zones on us and make us shoot. They're going to go under screens, and it's been our Achilles heel so far this year. So, they, as a front office, I think he's failed miserably about putting together a championship caliber team. Like you said, he's done the worst thing. He's built a team that's not bad enough to make the lottery and not good enough to make a run in the playoffs, but in the middle. That's the worst place to be. Worst place to be.
Yeah, very middling squad. But hopefully we can turn it around. Fingers crossed.
We have ideas.
We definitely do. And we'll dive into that. Let's just see what's going on in the chat. Keith Turner says role players are elite at something. RJ isn't elite at anything.
That's not true. RJ's elite at getting to the basket. Everyone and their mother knows he's going left, and nobody in the NBA could stop it. The problem is finishing. If he could ever finish, become a better finisher, but nobody can stop him doing that. And you have to say, hey, I respect that talent that he has. So he's great at getting to the hole. It's just, I wish he was elite at finishing besides of just driving there.
Yep. Dwayne Dennis says if Thibs isn't removed and replaced soon, then Leon Rose must leave to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. But, folks, that's why I think we're talking about this part, that it's really, Leon Rose is, like the CEO of the organization. And if you ask them, what do people do on a daily basis? I don't know. I'm running a company. Scott Perry, our general manager, runs the team, so Leon Rose is so many layers up. He doesn't know the nuances of building the team. He relies on somebody. So that's why getting rid of Rose, it is good, but unless you get rid of the person making the basketball decisions, the real basketball decisions, we're going to just be where we are.
And if that's the case, you got to fire everybody, because it seems like everybody's in on the basketball decisions. We got too many cooks. Worldwide West is in the room. Rosas is in the room. Scott Perry is in the room. Those are all three people I think contribute to bringing in talent, to adding to the roster, or adding to or able to have input on the direction that the front office is going in order to bring in new players. And I think if you look at those three, they have to. I don't know if they split the blame, because I'm not 100% sure who's really the point man when it comes to the acquisitions we make, the trades we make, because all we hear is it's a collaborative process. But we need to know who's the guy, who's running point, who's the one in charge, because you can't have three people all at the same level, because then that starts to bring a whole bunch of issues and things like that. So if Scott Perry is the one that's at the forefront and he's the final say on these decisions before they get presented to Leon Rose for the final decision, then we definitely have to hold Scott Perry accountable for some of the bad moves this team has made over the last 2-3 seasons.
It has to be. That's how, if you want to run it like a corporation, that's how corporations run. Scott Perry has to make those decisions. Walt Perrin comes in and says, this is my draft board. Okay, let me take that under advisement. What do you think, Walt? Okay, Brock Aller. All right, talk to me about the salary cap and what's our leverage, things like that. He takes that information, but he has to make that decision. As a basketball person, he gets that information, makes the best decision based on that information. It shouldn't be up to Leon. Leon should just be reaping the rewards of having a good basketball person. If it's up to, if Leon's going around the table, what do you think? What do you think? That's why we are.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, but we're not behind the scenes, so we don't know for sure. It's just, this is what it seems like from the little bit of information they do tell us publicly. All right, so let's look more slides that correlate with the GM position. So if we were looking to bring in someone else, we could reach out to Dan Tolzman. You see Dan Tolzman, he is. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Everything good? It seemed like the system went down, like it stopped for a little bit.
Yeah, it was, but you're good now.
All right, cool. So if we go out and bring in someone else to replace Scott Perry, one of the options would be Dan Tolzman. You can see he's the current assistant GM and VP of player personnel for the Toronto Raptors. Just to go through his resume, like I said, he's been the assistant GM and VP of personnel for the Raptors from 2017 to present. Before that, he was the GM for the Raptors G League team. At that point, they were the D League team. And he's also been director of scouting for the Raptors, and he was a scouting coordinator for the Denver Nuggets. And you look at the team like the Toronto Raptors, we mentioned them again, talking about the head coach position, but they're a championship organization, won a championship recently. They made a shrewd move in giving up a guy like DeMar DeRozan and bringing in Kawhi Leonard to help them get over that hump and, win a championship. Also, you look at the development that the Raptors have been able to do with guys over there. We mentioned, OG, Siakam. They brought in Scotty Barnes. In fact, you mentioned you're not able to get too many, good guys, like solid players in the late in the draft. But the Raptors have shown that they've been able to do that. They've got OG Anunoby at 23. They got Siakam at 27. So they've been able to find talent later on in the draft. And I think if we can bring in somebody from that organization that has shown promise around the league, I think it can definitely bode well for this team long term. So I think Dan Tolzman is a guy that should be on the Knicks' radar if they were to make a move and make some changes. Foxy, what do you think about Dan Tolzman as a potential option?
Yeah, everybody talks about Ujiri. Let's get Ujiri. Let's get Ujiri. You know what? That's something that we probably couldn't get, or the price was. But let's get his right-hand person. You know, if you look at the history, he and Ujiri were together in Denver, and the first thing that Ujiri did when he got to Toronto was hire Dan Tolzman. When Ujiri talks about him, it's glowing. And also, folks, if you do a search on YouTube for Dan Tolzman, the amount of interviews he gives. So unlike we don't know what the hell's going on, this guy talks to everyone. He's real comfortable with the press. He talks about it. He is an absolute draft guru. And, do you want to just share with some of the thoughts, some of the things Ujiri said about Dan? Because, I love it that all the guy that he ever talked about Ujiri is, no matter what hour ever coming to the office, this guy's there and he's working. He's always working. He's always looking at tape. That's all he ever does. So, Dan has a strong work ethic, is extremely bright, driven, and has a basketball background. That's why when we talk Leon Rose, that's not a basketball background. That's a basketball agent background. I would, as I said a second ago, I'd come back to the office late at night and Dan would be sitting in his cubicle watching tape. He's always working, and that's what stuck with me. And the first hire when he got the big gig in Toronto was he brought over Dan Tolzman. All about information, no rah-rah. He just goes about his business in an incredible way. He knows everything about everything. He's that type of guy. So he's really well respected. But Norman Powell, like you just said, all these other guys, that's this guy. This is the guy who finds him. He goes all over. All he does is travel the world scouting for the Raptors, prioritizing the players, and him and Ujiri have the same vision of targeting players that are young, athletic, and that are long, athletic players, because that's what the league is, to have a team of long guys. Imagine having a team of Cams and stuff like that, like DC, that are great on perimeter defense, that just, so I think he would be a dynamite hire to replace Perry.
Yeah, so if they do make a move in the offseason, if things don't work out, that's definitely someone that should be on their radar. And another one, real quick, Bryson Graham, assistant GM for the New Orleans Pelicans. His resume breaks down. He was the assistant GM for the Pelicans from 2019 to present. Also, he was the scouting coordinator before that, from 16 to 19. And then he was the video coordinator even before that, from 2013 to 2015. And you can see he started out back in 2010 as an intern and worked his way up. So that's definitely something you like. Me personally, I'm a Giants fan. You look at Shane and what he's able to do with the Giants. And he worked himself up from being an intern. So the guys that have that type of work ethic, you definitely want to keep an eye on them. And then you look at some of the guys that the Pelicans have been able to draft, solid players. So they're able to find good guys in the draft. You always mention Herb Jones. They were able to find that diamond in the rough. Yeah, so,
And so is Alvarado. That's his guy.
Jose Alvarado, yeah. Yep. So definitely someone that can find talent and would be a good option if the Knicks do decide to make some moves next season. Foxy, how did you feel about Bryson? I mean, you already mentioned it a little bit, Joe, talking about who his
yeah, but like you said, 12 years, he's there so long, they used to be the Hornets. Seriously, but also one of the things was he was hired by Dell Demps. And he was so good that when David Griffin came over to take in charge, he's like, no, I want you to stay. A lot of times they clean house, bring in all their own people. Like, no, you're a shining star. We want you to be here. So him working with him and Trajan Langdon, who's the GM there, but he's really, really well respected. They love his eye for talent. So that's all he does. Very similar that we were talking about Dan Tolzman. He has a great eye for talent. He's traveling all over, and also very similar to Dan Tolman, who is the GM of their D-League team, is that he works really hard on undrafted players, getting, those gems, like we said, Alvarado and stuff like that. So a lot of players around, a lot of people around the league just talk about him like, yep, he's a star, man. He's absolutely going to be a GM, in the near future. That is, like you said, his work ethic is off the chart. He's really good and he really knows his stuff.
Yep, and here are some of the. Oh, whoopsie, wrong one. Well, I guess I didn't upload it.
Okay, that's cool. I verbalized.
Yeah. All right, sorry about that, but I didn't put it up. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of positives about him from people in the league. So here we have the final summary. If the Knicks were to do something in the offseason, this is probably what it would look like. You would move on from Scott Perry, hire in a Tolzien or Bryson Graham to be the GM and VP, and you would let them hire the next head coach. Now, of course, that could be moving on from a potential interim coach in Johnny Bryant, or extending or removing the interim tag from Johnny Bryant and moving forward with him. But we gave you guys some options. It could be Bryant, Griffin, Collins, Atkinson, Snyder. You guys also mentioned some in chat. We'll pull those. And the next time there may be some rumors about Thibs being released like he's a player, being fired. We'll discuss those as some potential options. And the last bullet point, due to the contracts of RJ, JB, Randall, and Mitch, give him a 4 to 6 year timeline to turn around the franchise and overhaul our roster through the development of our young core, the draft, trades, and free agency. And you want to give them enough time. Hopefully the product on the court doesn't look like you have guys that are really, not giving it their all, because then that might eat into that 4 to 6 year timeline. But hopefully you bring in a new regime, new front office, not front office in totality, but that'll be on James Dolan. But you bring in a new GM, bring in a new head coach, and see if they can get us back onto a trajectory where we can be, championship contenders within the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we've seen the disconnect and lack of communication between the front office and Thibs, where they get players that are not Thibs players. So that's why, we brought in whomever they would hire to replace Perry. Let them have the creative license to hire their head coach. Don't burden them with a coach that they have to come in. Whether it's Adrian Griffin, who he works with now in Toronto, or somebody else, but somebody that is his guy, that he knows that there's a real, they communicate about their vision about building a championship caliber team, and that person has the same vision of saying, yeah, I like, long, wing defenders, athletic. We need all that. So those are the type of players that we're going to be bringing on. So let them have that leverage, and like we said, that only being fair to them now that this regime has contracts with RJ, and I'm not worried about Brunson, but Randall and Mitch, that they have a lot leverage, that some of the reports every year that goes by makes those guys easier to trade, or hopefully that they find their game and we don't want to trade them. That would be even better, but at least give this person, so there's no more Wes. Keith and I were talking about, this is crazy. You have Wes. What the hell's Wes doing there? You have Leon Rose, you have Rosas, you have Scott Perry. It's you said too many cooks ruin the broth or the soup, man. And, let's simplify this, have one guy and let him have his team and just say, this is what we're doing. And Dolan, I need a check for this. I need a check for that. Okay. And go from there, and just if you want to keep Rose, let him be ceremonial, but he should not be involved in roster and the development of the thing Too many people have talked about, and rightly so, is there the CAA in the background, whether Obi's, Rose's son is Obi's guy, things of that nature. So it's just really, really important that we bring and learn from our mistakes, give somebody, carte blanche to put, who has a great track record, of doing the right thing, being around guys, whether we'll say Ujiri, etc., to say, you know what, let's build a professional franchise. And you can't say the things that we've seen. If you have to give away draft picks in order, and that takes away from you even drafting or doing other things, and then you're saying, but look at it, we're giving away assets for that level player? Who the hell did this?
We've got a comment from Bayside. He says, I'm pushing back a ton on this conversation. I don't think it's warranted quite yet as far as the GM and Prez and front office. The Thibs conversation is different, as the coach always rolls first. Yep, that's why we led with the head coach, because typically that would be the move that would be made in season. So we led with the head coach, and we were just looking ahead. When you try to build out a roster, build out a championship contender, you try and look ahead, and you don't want to get caught blindsided by anything. So we just wanted to discuss some options if this is a route that the Knicks would pursue in the future. So just thought it would be out there for people that wanted to get a little bit more information on some of the potential options that may be on the verge of becoming general managers around the league and whatnot. So that's just why we did it, just to get you guys aware of some of the rising stars, I think, around the league. So appreciate that, Bayside Junior. I understand there's always going to be some pushback. Everyone's not going to always agree, but we appreciate you tuning in and participate. Like I said, this is a place where the chat, you guys are the third co-host of the show, so we would like to hear your opinions and helps keep us grounded as well, because sometimes we're fans as well. We can get a little bit emotional about this team, and that's why I like to look at the chat, just to help keep me grounded, so I don't get a little too emotional about my favorite team. So
hey, I resemble that remark. Hey, shout out to Shimmy MD. Since Johnny Bryan hasn't coached before, how do you guys jump to the conclusion that he'll be better than Thibs? Well, Shimmy, that's a great question, but I think is if Thibs loses the locker room, then you have to make a change. We're not saying anything about X's and O's, but if you're seeing certain behaviors and the guys are not having the energy and doing things, and you have to make a change mid-season, Johnny is the most sense. It would be the less, he has a relationship with the guys. It'd probably be the least toxic thing to do if you brought in somebody from the outside. Let there be some familiarity.
And we've seen, when a coaching change is made in season, sometimes it brings a new life to the team. So I'm not necessarily saying Johnny Bryan would be a better tactician than
exactly
Tom Thibodeau. That's one of my hesitancies about making him the head coach, or assuming he could potentially handle the duties of a head coach long term. But in the interim, maybe give him that opportunity for the last half of the season, just to see if that's something that the team responds to. And if the team responds to it the way you would hope, you would then have some film to make a better decision on Johnny Bryant long term. So that's all we're saying. I wouldn't say Johnny Bryant's a better head coach than Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau has, a great resume, former coach of the year. So for me to say that Johnny Bryant in his first opportunity or first few, months of being a head coach would be leaps and bounds better than Tom Thibodeau, that's not something I would try to say. I would just say maybe a new voice would kind of bring some of the energy back to the team, which we see from game to game, changes. Sometimes we have the intensity in one game and it's not the other. So maybe someone like Johnny Bryan could help that. So thank you for mentioning that.
Shout out to Bodega Wi-Fi. Hope all is well with you and your family, my friend. The same thing with the wonderful John Talento, Smoking Nick. Hope all is well. Thibs hasn't lost the locker room. They still fight every night. Oh, he's smoking all right.
Some do. The young guys, for the most part, fight every night. I don't really see
them. They do. It's just when they don't get minutes, it doesn't do us any good if he doesn't give them any burn.
True, if they're not out there on the court, yeah.
Yeah, but when you have a veteran like Leon Rose giving an interview saying, I really don't know what the hell my role is. Yo, what's that saying?
Leon Rose said he doesn't know what his role is? Oh, Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose. I got my roses mixed up.
Okay. I thought I was bugging.
Thank you. I appreciate this old brain farts. But
no problem.
Yeah. So if Derek is being blatant like that, saying nobody communicated, I thought that was Thibs guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. John Timolento says this is Knicks therapy. Facts. Appreciate you. Thank you. I'm thankful that I found you guys. Help me vent. Because without the channel, I really didn't have a real platform or space to really vent and talk about some of the things I was thinking. So we appreciate you guys tuning in and help support the channel. We got 108 in chat and we got 64 likes. Let's see if we can get that likes up a little bit higher. We'd greatly appreciate it. And before we close, just want to talk about some news stories that have been circulating. We touched on it a little bit earlier about Emmanuel Quickley and the fact that the Knicks would be open or are looking to move him in order to get back a first-round pick. And according to Fred Katz from The Athletic, the Knicks are willing to move quick because their long-term goal is to bring in to bring in a superstar, and they feel that the additional first-round pick would have more value in the trade than an Emmanuel Quickley. And I would say that's probably attributed to the fact that Thibs really hasn't put Emmanuel Quickley in the right position to really showcase what he can do, at least offensively. Defensively, he's definitely clicking and he's making some strides. I do have to give quick credit on that. I got to give Thibs credit on that. But offensively, I think there's been some mixed messages for Emmanuel Quickley over his first few seasons in the league. And I think that has contributed a little bit to some of his struggles. So that might be a reason why the Knicks feel they'll have more value from a first round pick in the future in a deal than Emmanuel Quickley.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier that I can't see that logic. It's alien to me. Like I said, if you're saying I'll give you a number 8 draft choice to get a superstar, I can understand that. If you're saying, all right, I'm trading Quick and I got a number 18 draft choice for him, what superstar are you going to get for that? But I'll give you our 18th from this one, the 15th from that one, the 19th from that one. Is that going to get him? Get out of here. Were we able to get Jaden Ivey last year?
Nope. We're able to move up.
So it's like, come on, you can only move up with real stuff. So like I said, I have no problem if we take Quickley and then take a draft choice, one of like a Dallas draft choice and send it off to the Pelicans and get a Trey Murphy and say, we're bringing on a complimentary player. Now we brought on a 6'8", real 3-and-D player with a 7-foot plus wingspan. And if Cam comes around, great. He's our second team guy. Now we got length. We're adding that. Good. We got Grimes. So Quickley, thank you so much. But we hope you have a great career. But we traded you in order to get another piece that will complement the other guys on the team for something that we don't have. But if you take a step back, SV Nation, what guy, we want to get SGA now. We're going to get SGA now. Do you think a draft pick that we get for Quickley and a few of the others that we have from Washington and the Pistons and a few others, that's going to do it?
Yeah, I don't think that'll be enough. We've seen that, but front office, I think they've got a grand plan. So let's see what they do. Hopefully they don't throw away Emmanuel Quickley for a first round pick that once again doesn't evolve into anything. I mean, we've got a boatload of first round picks as is. They haven't done a good job of selecting the best first round picks that'll have a lot of value around the league, seeing that they only had value to us.
Yeah, and like you said last stream, it's so great that we have him under contract for $4 million next year. So let's be patient on this one. He's showing that he is literally, top tier defense across the league. He's that good on defense now. So if we could put him in a position where we say, no, you're going to play this position, not, or he's the dreaded combo guard, whatever I need to do. But the bottom line is if he finds his floater game, his 3-point, and then you throw in defense like that at $4 million next year, hey, let us see his ceiling. Give him another year. It's a steal, the salary that we have him at. And if an opportunity for that a star comes available, whether disgruntled, whatever, then we'll talk about it. But giving him away for some mid-round draft choice is lunacy.
Yep. Let's see what we got going on in chat. Tyler Tyrewood says, "What's up? Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you pulling up." Bayside Junior says, "I give Thibs a lot of credit for what IQ is. Keep IQ, please." Defensively, I do give Thibs credit in helping make IQ a better defender, but offensively, I think it's still a work in progress. Very much a work in progress. The field goal percentage is not where we would like. The 3-point percentage is not where we would like. I think he's starting to figure out the free throws, which is a good sign. Hopefully, that means he's starting to figure out his shot a little bit. But I would just give the credit to Thibs defensively. Offensively, I think he was a little bit broken after the season.
Yeah, you know what's so crazy about watching this team, folks? You look at Quickley and you look at Grimes. For guys that are so young, they're the ones that are the most communicative on the court of pointing to their other players versus the veterans. They're the ones, the young kids are the ones saying, no, go over there. Not that the vets listen to them, but they're more aware defensively. So like you said, they've been great students of Thibs. So, and that's why it was like a revelation. And Keith and I said that last Sunday, folks, that you know what? It'd be a really crazy thing if we had Deuce before it happened. If we had Deuce, Grimes, and forgive me,
Deuce,
folks.
Grimes, and who else?
On the second team.
Quick?
Yeah. So Deuce, Grimes, and Quick. Wow, that defense is going to be in. And then we said actually Sims, because we were both on the Sims, train here. And Obi, can do what Obi does well in transition, although he won't be the defensive guy. But if you have 3 or 4 of those guys, they're going to be a serious team, especially perimeter and also, like you said, energy. They play every possession like it's their last possession. I love that. And also, just watching Grimes, you just can't help but love that kid, man. He takes angles. You think he's been playing for 10 years. His IQ is off the chart on defense. He's really smart. He did a play on baseline the other day and a few other things that you're just like, he's really, really good. And then you throw an IQ like that, and you're like saying, this is tight. This, like we said, Grimes, Deuce, and IQ, that's a nice nucleus of a tough defense.
Facts. I think someone sent us, who sent the super chat earlier saying that was one of the better defensive units. Was it Marshmallow?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so. Alan Alford says, "Spot on. Thibs makes those late picks worthless." Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate the support. All right, let's see what else we have going on in chat. Keith Turner says, "The Knicks are a 500 team, so Thibs is kind of safe for right now." Yeah. I think after the win on Monday, he definitely got himself a little bit of a breathing room. But, and they played well. I don't want to take anything away from the squad. The team definitely played well under Thibs, so you got to give them some kudos for that. The only thing is, they fooled me before, so I'm not sure they'll be able to carry some of this momentum throughout the next 6-7 games. And if you look at this upcoming schedule, it's pretty difficult. So you see games against teams like Portland. We play Memphis again. Detroit, we should beat the brakes off of them. No, I'm not too concerned about that one. You've got the Bucks again coming to the Garden. We play Dallas, we play Cleveland, and then we play Atlanta. So that's from Friday to Wednesday, December 7th. Those are some extremely tough games. And if we see the team perform like we saw in games against the Hawks, against the Nets, against the Nets, against the, who did we get the breaks beat off of outside of the Nets and the Hawks? I forgot the last one. I'm looking at the schedule. I'll tell you right now.
We beat the Thunder. We lost to the
Oklahoma
Suns.
City. There we go. The first time when they had two 43-point quarters on us. So if we have any losses like that over the next 5-6 games, I think you can definitely see the seat under Thibs get a lot warmer. So we just wanted to discuss some potential options if the Knicks do make a change, because we know, well, I won't even say we know. There are some options in house. We've got Johnny Bryant, we've got Dice, who we'll talk about next time. There's some reports about Thibs' seat being a little bit warm. We'll give you a little bit more backstory and information on him. But I think this next 6-7 game stretch is really going to tell us a lot about Thibs and whether he'll be able to make it to 2023.
Yeah, for sure.
We also got another super chat from SB Gorilla. Says this is a pipe dream, but I would trade RJ, IQ, and picks for SGA. Probably a pipe dream with the way that SGA has been performing to start the season and the fact that he's now healthy. But I mean, that'd be an interesting deal. RJ, I'm still a fan of RJ, but I'm skeptical. We saw him be able to knock down his shot, knock down his three in the last game against the Thunder, but I want to see some more consistency from him before I get back to my stance where I think RJ is another one of those untouchables on this squad.
Yeah, I can't see OKC trading SGA. You only would trade him for an all-star or, CSGA and picks to get, a Wembanyama, getting a Scoot Henderson. So it's saying, hey, we'll give up a guy, but we're going to give up an SGA for somebody that has a really upside, a huge upside. With RJ in his fourth year, you're saying he's not going to jump higher, he's not going to get faster. You're just hoping he gets smarter, he gets more savvy and more efficient. But if he does all those things, is he going to be an all-star? And you're like, maybe he can make an all-star one time, but I just don't know if SGA could make an all-star. The way he's playing a 30-point-a-game scorer, that's an all-star every year, man. So you only give up all-stars for all-stars.
Yeah, I hear you on that one, Foxy. And so before we go, we got another story wanted to discuss. Now, it's been previously reported that Derrick Rose or that the Knicks were open to potentially moving a guy like Derrick Rose. And then now we're starting to get some news that the Lakers may be a potential destination. So this is from Ashish Mathur of Heavy. He says the Los Angeles Lakers are interested in trading for the $43 million All-Star and former MVP. MVP.com senior insider Sean Devine spoke to an Eastern Conference executive who stated the Lakers have always had interest in New York Knicks point guard Derrick Rose, who is available in trade talk. He is always going to be a good soldier, and he might not even want out of New York just because he and Thibs are so tight, the exec told Devine. But he's going to want to play at some point, and he's going to want a chance to win. The Lakers, with the Lakers record, that sounds crazy, but neither here nor there. The Lakers have always had interest, but there is no way to make the deal work now with the contracts they have. So you might need a third team to get involved in order for them to facilitate this trade. But Foxy, what would the Lakers potentially have for us in order to get this deal done? I know we talked previously about Derrick Rose being on the market and what we would want in return. And I think for the most part, it said we were talking about a second round pick. So there would have to be some player being shipped to another third team in order to make the salaries work, unless there's somebody that the Lakers are willing to send to us.
Well, I have an idea. Let's ship Fournier and D Rose. Their two salaries equals Westbrook. Brickbrook. So let's do that. His salary comes off the books next year, and now we freed up 30 some odd million for us to have some leverage for this roster reconstruction that we're talking during this segment today.
Yeah, definitely could be an option bringing in Brickbrook. I've said it time and time again, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but if it's only going to be one season and we're able to move off of Evan Fournier's deal, I would prefer Julius Randle being included in that deal, because if we were able to move him, there's a lot more money on the next 3 years of that deal. But if we're able to get Evan Fournier's deal out of here and not have to give up any draft capital, I think that would be viewed as a win-win. You get Brickbrook back in return, and then you'll be leaving at the end of the season. So definitely an option the Knicks should explore if given that opportunity.
Yeah, free up time for the kids. It was great to see Deuce get some minutes. And I'm sorry, hey, Rose has had a great career, but I think he's cranky. He knows that he's not going to get the minutes he wants with Brunson on this team. So make him happy, get him out of here, and maybe he can win a championship someplace else. Again, we love him, but this, it happens to a lot of older players. It's like they know what it could have, should have, they have memories of years past. So I think he has visions of grandeur that I could have one last run at greatness, and I can't do it behind Jalen Brunson. Let me go someplace else. So if we can get his $14 million off the books and go, get somebody, but I wouldn't want to take a contract from that team.
Yeah, they've got some pretty contracts that are a doozy over there. So All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Pretty solid show. We appreciate all the support. Just want to give a few shout outs before we go. Keith Turner, The Ross, Knicks Nations 112, Shaw Legacy. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate the support and the back and forth in the chat as well. It helps us move the stream along, and it helps us add content as well. You know, I mentioned it earlier. You guys are the third co-host, and you do a great job helping us, you know, stay in line, stay on topic, and give you guys a great show. So we really appreciate all you guys do.
We have another super chat from the wonderful Paris Duggar.
Do we? Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that, Paris. Paris says, salute, guys. Thibs has to keep Deuce in 10 minutes a game. Yeah, Deuce and Sims are two guys that have to be put in this rotation. That's why, to me, it was mind-boggling when they're talking about shortening up the rotation to only 9 players. Why? Depth is one of our best assets. I mean, one of our best things on this team. The fact that we have a very deep team, and that we can go down the bench and we can bring in guys who maybe their game needs some work offensively, but you know, defensively, they're going to show up night in and night out. And we know we have some weak links on the squad defensively. So you have to find some opportunities to get these guys in the game, and it'll help them not only in the short term, but also in the long term, whether it be them developing for this team or developing and potentially being trade bait. So definitely Deuce needs to be a part of this rotation, especially with the way he's played. And I want to add Sims to that as well. And I'll give Thibs credit. He has been playing Sims more and more, especially over, you know, iHeart. So
that's a hard decision.
Fox, anything you want to add?
Yeah, it's just a few things. First, folks, you know, we get some crazy comments from people that, you know, Keith and I are just expressing our opinions. We're not saying we're right. We're just saying it's our opinion, and we have great respect for your opinion. But some people come say some really rude stuff. We're not saying we're, you know, this is the word, and if we, you know, whatever. No, man, it's just what our thing is. So please have respect for that. You don't have to say some nasty stuff. Like you know, some people said something about my wife this morning that I really didn't appreciate.
Who said that?
So some asshole that I won't say his name, but somebody didn't like said that we're hating on Randall. So they made a comment about my wife that it's like, what the fuck am I doing this shit for? I don't need this crap. You know,
that's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. So, folks, like I said, it's just our opinion. We're not saying it's gospel. It's like we do our homework, we do our research, but so do you. So we're just expressing, and we love hanging with you. But come on, man, just be respectful. You don't have to go down that alley. And then we say it all the time. We're not coming off like what we say, you know, is the only way. No, it's just what we think. But we, like Keith always says, you're the third host. We learn from you, and hopefully you learn from us. But it's a mutual gratification society. We're a family, and we listen and we learn, and we have great relationships. But some people just cross the line, man, and it gets, these trolls are just they're way heavy on me, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to take this shit because it's just unwarranted. So people, you know, like I said, we give ideas. You saw the show today. We thought it out as like how to make this, you know, everybody could say people suck, but we work behind the scenes like to say potentially how could we make this team better. You know, and if you agree, fine. If you don't agree, if you don't like the coaches we picked, that's cool. Much respect. That's what it's all about. So all I'm asking is just be cool, man. Otherwise, you won't be seeing me around much longer. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to go through that, Fox. You know, the internet
it bothered me this morning. I swear to God, it really bothered me a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some. I'll do some work behind the scenes, make sure that don't happen again. Well, I can't completely stop it, but I'll make sure.
Yeah, I was about to call my cousin Vito in Brooklyn to make sure it doesn't happen again. So,
Foxy got jokes.
Yeah, so, but yeah, man, just be cool, man. Don't be assholes.
Yeah, sorry you had to deal with that, Foxy, man. The internet could be a crazy place.
Word.
Yeah, but thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys show my guy Foxy some love, man. He puts a lot of work and a lot of effort to help me and not only stream, but also produce behind the scenes. So definitely, Foxy, I really appreciate all you've done for the channel. And really, once again, I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
I know. I love you, and I love, but I'm a weird guy. I love 99, but that 1% just sticks with me. It's like, is it worth it? I have a really blessed life. So, just really people and friends and pets that are just wonderful and really cool. I just don't like negative energy, man. I just go the other way. I just disconnect.
I hear you on that one. All right. So, appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll be logging off. We'll be back next Sunday. Well, no, Foxy, I got to talk to you about next Sunday. My grandfather.
I know the next several Sundays we may do pre games or something like that, but we're gonna get impacted over the next few weeks. So yeah, unfortunately,
yeah. So we'll let you guys know what the schedule will be like moving forward. I'll drop a community post, so make sure you guys are tuned in. If you haven't done so already, now would be a great time to like. We're at 80 likes. Let's see if we can get that 100 threshold. And also subscribe. That way you're notified whenever we do go live. We normally go live Sundays at 6:15 or out. Foxy likes to joke and say 6-ish, but put your alarm for 6:15. That's when we normally go live Sundays, and make sure you have notifications set to all, because we will do some live streams like this where we might pop up on an hour that's not the normally scheduled time slot. So make sure you guys are subscribed and have notifications set to all. So once again, I'm Keith, host of Sports Vibes TV, joined as always by our NBA analyst and my co-host, Stephen Fox. And till next time.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Turkey Day, everybody.
Uh-huh.